Today, my kids are all home because they're out of school, they're off track, and all the kids are getting off early today because it's spring break tomorrow. So the whole neighborhood is over at my house right now. So I have kids coming in and out, and this whole week has kind of been this way. And I realized this would be my only chance, my small little window to get this video in before the Easter holiday, which I really wanted to because I have a message I want to share about Easter. My kids are actually having a bake sale as we speak right outside, so I have to keep an eye on them. All kinds of strangers are coming up to our house buying cookies and lemonade, and so I'm keeping an eye on them while I'm doing this video, so bear with me. Okay, so before we get into the message, I just want to kind of update you with some fun little things that have been happening over the last couple of weeks since my last video. And you know, I went on a trip to Cancun and I was gone for a week, and I did have some experiences with that I want to share with you. But before I went on my trip, I was cleaning the house. You know, every time I go on vacation, I like to come home to a clean house because I'm going to have to do all this laundry from our vacation, so I don't want to have to clean the house as well. So I was cleaning the house, and all of a sudden I came across this card, and I remembered what it was. In fact, I'm going to read to you a journal entry that I wrote about it. But it says card right here from a bird that we rescued. And as I picked it up, I saw that the case number for this bird was 1311. And oh my goodness, I sure smiled. That made my day because this was a miracle right here that happened. And again, I feel like 311 lately is connected to miracles. And the miracles that we manifest in this last hour are all dependent on the seeds that we've been planting, those seeds of faith. So I want to share this experience with you. I have it written in my journal. I was able to find it. It's kind of fun going through this old journal and revisiting all these experiences. It says, Saturday morning, Tatum found a bird, a robin, on the neighbor's lawn. It was unable to fly. Manuel said to just let it be and die. I felt we could do something to save it. I put it in a box with some foam padding and filled up a tray with water and seeds. I put it on the front porch and played some nature meditation music next to it, and it seemed really grateful and kind. I prayed over it and asked for angels with veterinarian experience to come assist in its healing. Later that day, we brought it inside the house because we had to run some errands. Manuel didn't want me to bring it in the house, so I asked him to have some compassion for God's creatures. Our house was cool and free of predators. This was in August, so it was pretty hot outside. While gone, we were at the golf course, and in the parking lot, I looked down and saw a bird feather in my path. I noticed on the miniature golf course there were birds everywhere, seeming to try and get my attention. They were near us and chirping at us. I began to feel like a message was being sent to me from heaven through the birds. Today, I happened to be drawn to a video about near-death experiences. Halfway through the video, the woman said, God or heaven will often use birds, especially robins, to communicate messages to us. I could not believe the coincidence of that. Robins symbolize new beginnings. Ancient cultures believe birds are messengers of the gods. In the video, she said often birds appear when a loved one dies. Feathers represent a fresh start spiritually. So I was seeing feathers everywhere that day as well. I had the feeling a lot over the last few weeks to call my dad. So it goes on to talk about this experience where I had this feeling to call my dad, and so did my sister, and so we called my dad and we got in touch with him, and I was so grateful I had done that. But anyways, so we took that bird into the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, and there's a case number, you know, that they give you, and we checked back in a couple of weeks, and we found out that the bird was completely healed. So I really felt like, you know, that was a witness to me back then that when you have a prompting and you do your part, God will fill in and do his part. And so I remember back then feeling so grateful for this miracle, for this bird that we experienced. And then a couple years later, now seeing it connected to the number 311, it's no surprise at all. Now, a couple years prior to that, in this same house, we had a little yellow I forget the name of the bird. It reminded me of a canary, and it was this beautiful yellow bird that we found on our front porch, and we did the same thing. I took it to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, but I don't have the card for that. I don't remember where that is. That card is long gone now, but I remember kind of doing the same thing. I remember praying over that bird and giving it water and birdseed and playing heavenly music for it, and we kept it overnight. And the next day it seemed to be doing a little bit better, and then we took it into the same rehabilitation center, and because of the type of bird it was, they were really excited to get that bird, and they were able to restore it back to health. And what they do is once the birds are restored, they like to release them where you found them. So they release them into that same location. And so that's the second time that it happened to me. But it's interesting because I know someone reached out to me not that long ago and shared a similar experience about robins. I was really excited when I found this card, and I went back and revisited that journal entry. So this was actually July 31st of last year. It was the other bird that happened a couple years prior to that. So we've had our fair share of experiences with birds. Now I also have an experience that happened to me when I was in Cancun. So that I don't forget about it, I'm actually going to share it with you right now because I'm going to talk about my trip later on in this video, but I don't want to forget this experience. On the very last day, the last hour, we were at that resort and we were waiting for our shuttle to come pick us up, so we were having lunch on the beach. We were sitting there at the table outside at this grill, and all of a sudden my kids said, "Mom, look up." So I look up and they're like, "What kind of a bird is that?" And I look up and right above me, perched on this little rafter, is a dove. And in my very last video, I had the experience with the 2 doves that I shared. I had all these miracles happen right before I went on my trip so that I was able to have peace of mind on my trip and enjoy it. And I felt like that dove was a reminder on that very last day, in that very last hour. I just felt it. I just said last hour. We're living in the last hour. I'm now seeing the symbolism in this right now as I make this video. But in that very last hour that we were enjoying that vacation, there was a dove reminding me of the peace that I can feel in this last hour, the peace that I was even feeling in the last hour of my vacation, the peace that I experienced that entire week. And that's another message that comes with 311. What we experience in this final hour is all based upon the seeds that we have planted. So the seeds of faith that I had planted brought the peace, which I feel brought the miracles and brought more peace. Sometimes we wait for the miracles to happen before we choose to feel peace. But I was learning through these experiences that I needed to feel peace first. Once I felt the peace, that brought me up to a higher vibration. And as I praised the Lord and expressed gratitude in those circumstances and in those trials, I brought myself up to that higher vibration, which pushes the darkness away. And I feel like it helps quicken those miracles. It speeds everything up. It's like you're a magnet, like we talked about. The magnet, it just draws everything good into you, everything that matches your vibration. So what we experience in this final hour, whether it's fear or whether it's peace, is all determined on the seeds that we have been sowing over the last couple years, all the way up until, the last couple of weeks. So that's so important right now. That's the message I keep feeling. And I had an experience this week where I felt something else in connection to 311. Something that's key in this final hour is praise and gratitude. Praising the Lord all throughout the day. In fact, I think it would be a wise idea to set an alert on your phone that goes off every hour. And when you see that go off, just put your phone down, step away, and express praise and gratitude to the Lord for anything, whatever is on your mind at that moment, for your job, for your family, whatever it is. And just take a moment, just take about 5 minutes and just express praise to Him and gratitude. And I feel like if we can do that all throughout the day, not just at night when we go to bed and say our evening prayers or when we wake up in the morning, but if we do it all throughout the day, it's really going to help us plant those seeds, because we'll be planting those seeds every hour. I know I've talked about this in my workshop, the Happy Ladybug workshop. If you haven't checked out those 4 videos, you might want to do that. It shows that chart of feelings and emotions, and they all have a frequency, a different calibration, and the highest calibration was praise. And so when we express praise in a trial or when we're having a bad day, it's going to pull us out of that. So in the moment, if we're complaining, you know, and we're expressing all the things that are going wrong, and we're doing this a lot, or you know, you make those sounds, that immediately pulls you down into a very, very low vibration, which draws that negativity and darkness into your life and brings on more of that. So the parable of the sower, you know, the law of cause and effect, whatever you want to call it, is just a reminder that we need to, in those moments, look for all the good and say, hey, Lord, I'm so grateful in this moment. I'm grateful that I still have my health. And I'm grateful that you're using this experience to teach me something amazing. And you know, as we say those things and we express praise to him and gratitude, it's going to quickly take us from here to the very top. And if we can continue to do that, we're going to see those trials melt away. We're going to experience what that's like to be at a frequency that high and like a magnet, pulling all that into your life, all those blessings, all of that peace, everything that's good. We're going to feel the Savior's presence even more than when we're vibrating down here and we feel like we're all alone, just sludging through our problems. So that's been a huge reminder for me, and I felt that was so important. I wanted to share that at the beginning of this video. Okay, now in the last video that I made, I shared an experience about a video that came up in my feed, and it had the number 311 on it, so I felt prompted to watch it, and I did, and it was all about miracles. I think it was called Miracle Explosion, and it had those 3 Christian women in it, and I forgot to show the visual for that in my last video, so I remembered this time. Here it is, and I posted a link to this in my last video, so if you click on the last video and scroll down into the video description on YouTube, you'll find that link, and you can watch that if you want to. But anyways, I realized after the fact that I had left that out of my video. Now that's another miracle right there. I just want to share with you that the last video I made was the longest video I have ever made. Very long video. Most of you know that have watched it. And it was a miracle in itself that I got that published right away. So let me just tell you, the day before we left on our trip, I finished that video in the evening. I mean, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and my family was already in bed, and I still needed to finish packing, and here I had this video that needed to upload to YouTube, and I thought, I really want to get this out before I go on this week-long vacation. This video is so important, this message is so important, and I didn't want to have to wait and do it when I came back. But I knew from past experience, when I have a video this long, I mean, even the other videos that I've made that are not as long as this one, they're still pretty long, and from past experience, it takes a few tries before it will finally upload, and it'll go for hours, and then I'll come home and there's an error, and I have to start all over again and wait a few more hours, and sometimes I get another error. Well, this time, I thought, Lord, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If you want this video up before I go, you'll pull through a miracle. It's easy for you to do. And if it doesn't work out, I do need to get some sleep, so I'm going to give it a couple of tries, and if I can't make it work, I'm going to take that as a sign that it's okay if I publish this when I get back from my trip. Well, anyways, I went through the normal steps of uploading it to YouTube, and all of a sudden this error came up that I've never received before in iMovie, and it was telling me that the video file was too big and that it could not upload to YouTube, and I couldn't do anything with the file. I couldn't save it anywhere. I wasn't able to do anything with it. It was the strangest thing. And so I shut everything down, turned the computer back on, went back in, tried it again, same error came up. And I thought, oh no, what am I gonna do? And I tried everything I could think of. I thought, okay, well, I'll just troubleshoot it myself real quick. And I went into YouTube and typed in a few things. I found a couple of videos. And between the couple of videos that I found, through the Spirit, I was guided to borrow a couple of tips from this video, a couple of tips from that video, change them up. And I found a trick that quickly allowed me to upload my video. Anyways, I couldn't believe how fast that worked. Just in minutes, I had this video ready to go and I was able to upload it. And I thought, okay, here's the final test. I'm gonna go ahead and upload it to YouTube. When I wake up in the morning, if it's on there, I'm gonna hit publish. And if there was an error on YouTube, I'm gonna call it good. I'll just be done with it till I get back. So I went to bed at like 2 in the morning and I hit publish, and by morning came in and checked, and there it was, all ready to go. So I was able to publish it right before I went on my trip. So that video I felt was kind of rushed, and so I was in a hurry to edit it, so I did leave some things out of it. and I wasn't able to do a second edit on it, so there were some repetitive things in there. But anyways, I found that as a miracle, that God showed me a way, a trick I could do to save so much time, to bypass all of the errors and to get that up as quickly as possible. And I was so grateful to show him my gratitude. I went in on YouTube under one of those tutorial videos and I said, here's a trick that I found that works even better. And I shared it, and since then I've had quite a few people like that comment and reply and say, oh my goodness, this saved me. This tip saved me. I've tried everything and what you shared absolutely saved me. Thank you so much. You know, the Lord not only used that experience to bless me, but to also bless other people out there who were finding the same problem. So I just love how he works. He is so amazing. So here's something that I left out of my last video that I want to share as well before we go right into the message. Here's a screenshot I want to show you of another video that popped up in my feed. I noticed right away that this video was published on November 13th of last year. So 11/13. There it is, 113 or 311. And I found that interesting and I felt prompted to watch this video. It's called Cleanse the Temple and Drain the Swamp. This man happened to be talking about the Billy Graham prophecy that I mentioned previously in another video. He talked about that. It was so random. I wasn't expecting that. And so I thought that was really interesting. It's kind of a nice little surprise. I love it when these random videos pop up and they have 311 on them. I get so excited to watch them and just let the Spirit guide me through the video and see what's in there for me, that's useful for me and my testimony. I actually really enjoyed this video, so I put a link to it down below in this video description if you want to scroll down and check that out. And what's interesting is the videos that popped up on the side, the very first video at the top was this one here. Take a look. It's called Breaking Toxic Soul Ties and Alignments. As you can see from the screenshot, it was 33 minutes and 11 seconds long. So there it is, 311, but there's also the number 33. Now when I clicked on the video, here's the other screenshot. 33 is all over this video. Here it is. I was seeing this number all over my computer in that moment. And again, I like to remind everybody that 311, if you look at it as 3 11s, 11 times 3 is the number 33. So it's funny, I just feel like I'm always seeing that number lately, 33 and 311. And I also see a lot of 13. And it's amazing. So I watched this video actually after I came back from my trip. It's all about spiritual warfare. And so I posted a link to this as well. There were some very helpful things in that video that I found very helpful and a couple things I learned that were new. So I recommend that video. What's interesting is after watching this video, I know I mentioned on the 11th Hour Workers Facebook page that so many people have been kind of going through a weird week. It was kind of a weird week for so many people. Weird things happening, kind of some weird vibes. And I started to feel it too when I came back from my trip. What was interesting is I ended up finding out that I had a soul tie with the person in the experience that I shared in my last video, that toxic experience that I shared where I was being bullied. And I remember feeling that if I shared that experience in that video, every time somebody hit play and watched that video, it would bring that experience back to life. It would put those seeds out there. I talked in that video about the feelings that I felt at that time and those real emotions, and I kind of revisited all of that. And so by doing that, by going into the past and bringing up the past, you do dig up all those feelings and emotions. You do put those seeds out there. And so I knew that was a risk by sharing that. You see, because when you heal from an experience, and when you let something go, you really let it go. You heal from it, you bury it. You don't need to talk about it anymore. And if you do feel the need to share it with someone because you think it might be helpful, you certainly don't need to go into all the details of bringing up those raw feelings and emotions because it's only going to do harm. And I did share quite a bit in that video, and I remember thinking, knowing going into that might attract some negativity every time that video is played because it's me sharing it. and it's my voice. And you know, your words are so powerful. Your voice is so powerful. The things that we say, the things that we speak, we create. We create with our voice, we create with our words. So anyways, after making that video and after coming back from my trip, I started to feel what everybody else was feeling. It was just kind of a weird week. And I felt that I was connected to someone or something, and I couldn't figure it out. I was so busy, I didn't have the time to figure it out. So as each day would go by, I just felt a little bit off. I knew there was something that I needed to do. So finally, there came a day when I had some time to take care of this, and I found out that I did have a soul tie with this person because of the magnitude of that miracle that we experienced, and the magnitude of those emotions that happened throughout that whole ordeal. They were so powerful that it did create a soul tie, and by revisiting that experience and sharing it in the video, all of that came back up to the surface, and I connected myself to this person again, and I could feel that. So I had to, you know, pray and ask for that tie to be cut, and I really do feel like every time someone watches that video, it happens again. And so I feel like it's going to be a constant thing where each day I really have to pray for that protection and pray to put up those spiritual boundaries so that I don't have any attachments and I don't have any ties or cords. Anyways, I know I've talked about that in past videos before, but what I love about this video is she explains that in there from a scriptural point of view. And she talks about different experiences in the scriptures where prophets mention soul ties and how their souls were knit together, and how real that is. And I know because I've experienced it myself, and I'm sure many of you have as well. She really goes into detail on that, and it goes a lot with that spiritual warfare video that I made. This is something that we need to be aware of in this final hour as we're trying to do all that we can to strengthen ourselves spiritually and fight off the enemy. This is something really important to be aware of. I just love the Lord's timing. He led me to this video, I watched it, I learned some things, and then I found out that I did have a negative soul tie that I was able to cut, and probably also so that I could share it in this video with you. I'm sure this is going to be helpful to some of you out there as well. Okay, so I just got a call from one of my neighbors and learned that one of my other neighbors just had a heart attack. And so they needed me to run over and take care of some things at their house. So it's just been an interesting week, but I want to say that on my way over there and all throughout the day today, even at the temple, I've been seeing hearts everywhere. And I saw a heart right in front of the door when I walked into their home. I saw a heart in the dressing room at the temple, and I've just been seeing hearts everywhere. So through the midst of all the surprises that life brings us, if we look and we take a minute to just listen and feel, we can feel our Savior's love. We can feel the love that God has for us in those moments, in our storms. That's just been a little reminder for me today that when things go wrong, you know, to take a minute and just look for the Savior. Where is He right now working in your life? He's always next to us. He's always nearby. He's always helping us. He's always guiding us what to do and where to go and what to say. And so if we just take a minute to just feel that, we will, and we'll be able to recognize the Spirit and feel it working in our lives in those moments. So that's been the message that I've been feeling all day today. So in that video that I just shared with you about the woman talking about soul ties, I made some notes here of some of the things she talked about that were really fascinating. She talked about Lent. Now, for those of you who don't know what Lent is, let me just share that with you real quick. It's an observance in the Christian church that begins on what is known as Ash Wednesday and lasts for 40 days. And it ends on what is known as Palm Sunday, which was just this last Sunday, which I'm also going to share something with you that happened on Palm Sunday. So it goes for 40 days. So after Lent comes the Holy Week, which is everything that leads up to the resurrection. The whole purpose of observing Lent and participating in it is to prepare the believer for Good Friday and for Easter. So it's a spiritual preparedness. It involves prayer, repentance, for some even fasting, anything that's going to help you give up all those things that are holding you back, everything negative in your life, and become something new and have a fresh start, a new beginning, which is what Resurrection Morning also represents, is that new beginning, that fresh start, new life. So she was saying in this video, she pointed that out, and so I went and looked it up to see when that began this year, and Lent began on February 14th. It began on Valentine's Day of this year, and she said that whenever, from her experience, every time Lent takes place, she notices a huge increase of spiritual attacks from the enemy, not just in her own personal life, but in her ministry and everything that she does. She notices a lot of attacks from the enemy. And it's really interesting, as I got thinking about it, I thought, what just happened this year on February 14th? And that was the massive school shooting in Florida. That began on February 14th. I had all those experiences during that time also that I shared in my last video of what were trials and challenges that ended up turning into miracles. But at the time, I did feel like it was an attack from the enemy, but that God would use it for good and it would become a blessing for me. Now it ended on Palm Sunday, which was this last Sunday. So the day before, which was a Saturday, I felt exhausted. I felt so tired, and I couldn't figure out why, because our vacation was pretty relaxing. We were on the beach for the most part, and I was able to just come home and rest and relax, and I got plenty of sleep Friday going into Saturday. And for some reason, I was just drained and exhausted to the point where I just sat down and fell asleep for a few hours in my bed, which I never do. And all day I felt so fatigued and so drained. It was interesting because she talked about that in this video, and she said during this time, you'll have attacks from the enemy where you feel drained and exhausted, and that's actually one of the ways that he attacks us. He drains us so that we can't do the things that we want to do. You know, he interferes with our plans. He interferes with the good works and the service that we can do by draining us and making us feel tired so that we feel physically incapable. And that's exactly what I was experiencing, and I didn't realize that till I watched her video. And then I remembered when I was in Mexico, as we were at the airport waiting to board our flight, I looked around, and my husband and we noticed that there were so many people there with casts on their arms, casts on their legs. There were a few people that were in wheelchairs, and as we talked to people, we learned that all these different tourists came to Cancun for a vacation and somehow were injured and had to go to the hospital, and they were leaving now with a broken arm or a broken leg or whatever it was. I mean, it was everywhere. We'd never seen anything like it before. So my husband thought, well, maybe it's because when people come here, they get really ambitious and they want to really enjoy the recreational part of it, and so they try windsurfing or parasailing, you know, they try all these different things and they get injured. But I felt like there was more to it. Now that day, while I was in the airport and I was scrolling through my phone, I had seen a post the week before about this, and I was reminded again when I saw this post. I had a couple different friends share it. It was an article about the sun and how during a certain period of March, it was during this Lent period, that there were all these solar explosions on the sun, and because they were abnormal, experts were saying that this would have a physical and emotional effect on our bodies, and we would feel it, and it would come in the form of anxiety and depression, that you would feel extra anxious, extra down in the dumps, you know. And so I was standing there in line when I was thinking about this article, and I couldn't help but overhear the women standing behind me. It was a mother and her daughter, and I heard her daughter saying, I have to get out of here, I have to get home. And I tell you, any minute I'm either going to throw up or I'm going to cry from anxiety. That's how strong my anxiety is right now. So I just turned around and I said, you know what? And I just shared with her that article, and I just said, that's really interesting because I just read something about that, and I can't verify the truthfulness of it, but I just thought I would share with you. And so then they said, well, you see that guy over there in that wheelchair? So I look over, and at the end of the line is another man in a wheelchair. She said, that's my husband. She said, our trip ended a week ago, and right before we were supposed to come home, he had a freak accident. He was bit by something on the beach that caused seizures, and he broke out in all of these seizures, which is a first for him. Never happened before. And we took him to the ER, and he's been there all week. And she says, it's been the most terrifying experience of my life, and I don't ever want to come back to Mexico again. I hate it here. I have all these bad memories now. And she was in that complaining mode, and her daughter was in that complaining mode, and they're like, we just want to get over there to the bar and get some drinks. And so I just found that interesting. And so when I came back and watched this video, and the woman in the video talked about Lent and the attacks from the enemy, this video was from November of last year. So I just found it really interesting that it happened to be at the top of the feed, and you know, it's not even a new video, and it happens to be about this time period that we're in right now, Lent leading into Easter. and everything in it, everything she talked about were experiences that I experienced this week. And so I don't believe in coincidences. Anyways, I just really felt the need to share that in this week's video because I know there are many of you out there who are feeling the same way, that this was kind of an off week, kind of some strange things going on, some strange vibes. But I feel like as we get to Easter weekend now, all that's gonna change. I'm excited. Oh, and it's 3:11 on my video right now. It's 11 minutes and 33 seconds. So I just wanna say that I believe that during that time, Satan becomes even more desperate. Not only because we're in that final hour and we're in that final stretch, but because it's a period when people are trying to better themselves and trying to sanctify themselves. And it's a very holy time of year, and he knows that. And he knows what's going on in the spirit realm. He sees what's happening as people try to better themselves, as they fast, as they pray, as they give things up to become something better. He sees the real power that that has on their lives at working against him, and he doesn't like that. And so he's doing everything he can to mess that up for us and to stop that. I believe that's what it is we're feeling, and those are the reasons for those attacks. So the other night I did my light therapy that I got from the Theta Wellness Center that I've mentioned in past videos, and I did that light therapy with the sound, with the theta waves. Wow, 30 minutes later, I felt like a whole new person. You know, the darkness doesn't like the light. So I put all that light into my body, and I could feel that darkness leave. It was like a spiritual reboot for me. And then I did a lot of fasting this week. I went to the temple today, and I'm so ready now for this weekend, for this Easter weekend. And I'm so excited because I, for the first time, you guys, am going to be celebrating Passover with my family. This is something I've always wanted to do, and I've written blog posts about it. And I shared, I'll put the link below in this video if you want to check it out, a blog post that I wrote last year where I shared a free book, a free PDF by an LDS woman who is also Jewish, who shared how we can implement Passover into that Easter celebration and how we can do it in a way that lines up with LDS doctrine. And I love it. And she has some great ideas for your family and for kids and recipes and things like that. So that link is down in there. And I'm going to show you what I got for that, for our little celebration. So I had been to so many stores this week. I had called, I had gone everywhere. When I mentioned Passover and Passover foods and kosher foods and anything that had to do with Jewish terminology or Passover terminology, I got the blank stare or the silent pause on the phone. People had no idea what I was talking about because that's really not a part of our culture out here in Utah. We don't have as many Jewish traditions out this way and Jewish families, and so it's really not a big part of our culture. I remember having a seminary teacher in 9th grade who had us celebrate Passover in school, and she brought everything for it, and it was so much fun, and I learned so much. It was such an amazing spiritual experience, and I thought I want to do this someday with my own kids, and I've never done it. And every year when I think about it, it's too late. It's like the day after, and I think, oh, now I have to wait till next year. But this year I remembered. I ended up ordering some things online. I went to Amazon first, and then they were out of a lot of things, and then the things that they didn't have Amazon Prime, so I'd have to wait a long time. It would be too late. I wouldn't get them in time. And then the ones that did have Amazon Prime were like 20 bucks for just a little box of crackers. So I tried going to all my local stores. Nobody had anything, and I even called World Market because I thought for sure they have stuff from all over the world. And when I called, the lady on the phone, before I even finished my sentence, said, nope, we don't have that. She didn't even look or really know what it was I was asking for. And I didn't want to drive all the way out there. So I happened to drive past Smith's Marketplace in Kaysville and had to run in and grab some cups for my kids' bake sale. So I asked the ladies there, and they thought, oh, no one's ever asked us this before, but we want to figure it out. We want to know if we do have anything. And so I said, well, I have to have bread that doesn't have yeast in it, so the unleavened bread. And I've checked pita bread, and I've checked flatbreads and everything else, and they have yeast in them. I was describing it to her that, it's kind of like a cracker, and she got thinking, and she said, well, we do have a kosher aisle, but I've never really paid attention to what's on it. So she took me over to the kosher aisle, and there was everything that I had researched for a typical American Passover meal was all right in front of me, all in one place. So I went online and canceled all my orders. I eventually had ordered some things off of Walmart that had 2-day in-store delivery, And so they were supposed to arrive today, and then I got an email saying that there was a holdup and I wouldn't get them till next Wednesday. So I canceled that order. And anyways, it was meant to be. We're supposed to do this Passover because I found everything. Most of this is made in Israel, and it's definitely kosher, which means that it's in line with Jewish law. So the first one here is the red grape juice, which is part of that celebration. So I got my red grape juice, and it's kosher. I'm trying to do it just right so we can get the real authentic experience. Then I noticed in all the videos for dessert, all the Jewish families would serve coconut macaroons. So right above the grape juice on this kosher aisle, they had coconut macaroons in different flavors. So I grabbed some of those. And then for the part where you have something bitter, you talk about the bitterness of the tears of the children of Israel when they were slaves. And a lot of people just recommend the green leaves of celery because it's a little bit bitter, but I wanted something really bitter. So I asked the guy in the produce, and he recommended this, and I totally forgot the name of it. Belgium, I can't remember the name of it, but anyways, it's very, very bitter, and you can have it in a salad or whatever, so I'm going to chop that up with some celery, and you dip it in salt water, and it's supposed to make you think of tears and the bitterness, and I love it because in Gail's book, in that blog post that I shared last year, so if you want to click on that link below, she ties that in from an LDS viewpoint and eventually ties this all into the Savior. And so I love it. So anyways, I got that. Got my celery. Now this is what they use for the unleavened bread. They use these crackers. And from everything I've researched online, this is the brand that's the best. It has the best flavor. And the crackers hold together really well because they have to be all together in one piece. They can't be broken. And so a lot of the other brands come broken and taste burnt. So I was so happy that Smith's had this brand. They had other brands too, but this was the last box, which tells me it's a good brand because everybody bought it. And it's even more expensive. So I got these crackers. And in the tradition, you break the bread and you hide it in the house, and the children have to go find it. There's a whole story behind that. And whoever finds the broken bread that's hiding, they get a special prize. So there's the symbolism, the things that you eat and pass around the table that all symbolize something, and then you actually have a meal. And so for the meal portion of it, the bread that they use that's unleavened, it's called matzo. They take the dried bread and they turn it into crumbs, and then they create these matzo balls, so there's no yeast in this whatsoever. And they serve it in a broth, so it's like a soup. So I bought that, and we're gonna have that soup with it as well. When the Jews celebrated Passover, they would always sacrifice a lamb and then they would cook it. So I'm actually going to the butcher's tomorrow, and I'm going to buy some lamb ribs, and we're going to cook some lamb. Horseradish is a part of the Passover meal just because of the symbolism. And they didn't have any horseradish in the produce section, so I bought this prepared horseradish, which I know my kids are gonna freak out when they have to taste it. And there you have it, everything for the Passover meal. And so we're just gonna have the soup, we're gonna have the lamb, and we're gonna have this celery salad, the grape juice, the macaroons. From everything that I read, Passover meal is certainly not this fabulous, delicious feast, right? Everything is very symbolic of something, you know, and if you go strictly in accordance to Jewish law, the way that they practice this, you do a really good house cleaning the day before or the day of, and you get out all the crumbs in your home that might have had leaven in them from leavened bread. You get that all out of your home, you clean, it's like a fresh start. Maybe that's where we get the word spring cleaning from. I just thought of that. But anyways, you do a spring cleaning, and then you celebrate Passover. And so I love that. I actually do need to clean my house. It is a disaster, but I don't know that I'm gonna get it that clean in time for Passover. Just go to YouTube and just type in Passover meals, Passover ideas, and you'll see ideas and recipes that other people have shared that work with this and that are easy to do. There's an outline that you read, like a program you go through as you eat the dinner. So I'm really excited for that. I feel like it's just going to be an extra little treat to bring us in to Easter weekend and prepare us for that. So I'm excited. So last Sunday was Palm Sunday, and as I was sitting there in my cute little Sunbeam class, my partner was teaching the lesson, and it was about the resurrection. So she was teaching the kids about the resurrection, and she was talking about Jesus's body and how he has a body still and he's alive. And as she was sharing this, I look up at the window from where I'm sitting, and I see the Savior and our Father in heaven looking at me. Check it out right here. Looking at me through the window of the door. And I loved it. I was so happy I took a picture with my phone. They were watching through the window of the door as we were teaching this lesson, and I just got this overwhelming feeling that they were pleased with this lesson, and they were pleased that we were teaching these little children about the resurrection and about our Savior Jesus Christ and what he did for us. And they were very pleased with that, and I felt that as I saw them looking at us through the window. And I even showed it to the children. I said, they're with us right now, they're watching us right now, they're always near. You can always feel your Savior near, you can always feel your Father in heaven near. Oh, their faces just lit up as they saw them looking through the window. It was awesome. That happened on Palm Sunday, and I just want to share that with you. For those of you who don't know much about Palm Sunday, I just wrote a blog post about it last week on my post, so I've included the link to that as well. I also talk a little bit about General Conference that's coming up this weekend and some exciting things that I had heard about that. So I shared in that post that I had heard from lots of sources that there's going to be some big announcements, probably exciting announcements, coming at this weekend's conference. And after I posted that video, a couple days later, my sister called me. She hadn't seen this post, and she said, you know what, it's so interesting. On Sunday, our bishop told us to spread the word and tell everybody who wasn't in the meetings or who wasn't there at church, to let everybody in the word know that this was a very important general conference and that we needed to be there and listen to or attend every single session on Saturday and Sunday, because at every single session there was a planned announcement or a very important message that would be delivered at each session. And so how important it was for us to attend all of it, which I never miss anyways, because I love conference. That was another witness to what I had already been hearing and what I had shared in that blog post. So I'm so excited for this weekend. Okay, so a lot of people have been talking about a shift that they're feeling happening right now. I heard this week from some Christian pastors and people of various Christian faiths that they felt there was something big that was going to happen in the month of April. They felt some kind of shift coming. One man described it as a shaking. He felt a shaking was coming in April. And when I heard that, it reminded me of my dream that I had earlier this month, about that big, strong angel who reminded me of Michael taking those 3 steps and stomping on the earth and shaking the earth with his feet, and that storm that was coming behind him. And it was a spiritual weapon that he was bringing in, that spiritual warfare, and it was coming in the form of a storm and shaking. But it was a good thing. It wasn't something to be afraid of unless you were on the wrong side, right? It was a good thing. And so when I heard all these other people saying those similar things, they were also having dreams, and that's what caused them to believe this. I thought, wow, that's an awesome witness to my own dream and the way that I've been feeling. So I just wanted to share that with you. In fact, my dad even called me the other night, and I'm going to share more about that in a minute because that was a really awesome phone call. But he shared with me in that phone call, he said, you know, I feel like something big is coming, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but I feel that I really, really need to spiritually prepare like I've never prepared before so that I can be a part of this. There's something big coming, and I feel like the Lord's setting things up in my life to get me prepared for that. And he's like, I just feel it so strong. And so he was another witness. As we focus on this positive shift that's happening right now, I can't help but notice all these movies that are coming out right now out of Hollywood that are all Christian-based movies. It's amazing. And some of the movies that I have listed on here. So there's Paul, Apostle of Christ, coming out, and I'm really excited for that movie. It just came out this month. Of course, there's the movie I Can Only Imagine, which has been having really good reviews and great success at the box office. I heard that Mel Gibson is creating another movie called The Resurrection. It's in the works, but it's going to be years in the making, and he wants to tell the story of the resurrection, but he wants to focus on the 3 days that led up to resurrection morning, and he wants to focus on what happened during those 3 days. It's interesting because I know in the last video I mentioned that woman who shared her out-of-body experience where she talked about having that vision and being shown what took place during those 3 days and what she saw the Savior do when he took back the keys of death. And she had a very detailed description of what happened down in the pits of hell and how he overcame that. She had mentioned, I remember her talking about how Hollywood producers were very interested in her account and in her experience. They flew her out to Hollywood more than once to get her details on that story and asked permission and asked to work with her to create some movies that would tell that story. And so when I heard this, I wondered if Mel Gibson was one of those producers who's working to tell that story. And I'm really hoping it's not going to be rated R like his other movie, The Passion, was. While I was on the airplane coming home from Mexico, I watched that movie called The Shack that came out last year. And I'd heard a lot about it, but I never had time to watch it. And it was on the plane, so I watched it, and it was amazing. It was an amazing story about forgiveness and repentance and how God turns our trials and challenges into some of our greatest blessings. And I loved it. So I highly recommend, if you've never seen The Shack, go rent it. Some of you have heard about the movie that's been funded on Kickstarter called The Reign of Judges. It's a movie that tells the story in the Book of Mormon during that period of the Reign of Judges. And all those epic battles and everything that took place, it tells that story. They've had some great success with getting some incredible well-known actors from Hollywood to do those roles, and they've been having some great success with that. They were able to fund that movie through Kickstarter and also received more than what they were asking for. So I'm really excited. A lot of you have seen that premiere. I am really hopeful that they will be able to get the funding to do the entire movie and be able to get a major production company to partner with them. I'm so looking forward to that. I'm so excited. And these are just the times that we're entering into right now. This is that shift that's taking place where these are the kind of movies people want, and this starts to become the norm and people get excited. I really believe that people are getting tired of what Hollywood's been producing, and I think we're ready for change. I think more and more people are hungering for these types of movies. And then my dad told me about this movie called God's Not Dead. I don't know much about it, but it's also coming out in March. I find that so interesting that a lot of these movies are coming out this month. This is a story about light in the darkness. Love it. It's all about healing and rebuilding, which has been the message for me and that I've been sharing in so many of my videos, that this is a time when we really need to heal ourselves so we can become those bright lights. There's a movie called Mary Magdalene that's also being released on March 30th. It's just amazing, the significance of that. This is Passover weekend. This is when these movies are coming out. I don't think that's a coincidence. Anyways, and I've even heard people say that that movie called A Wrinkle in Time has some Christian themes in it and some spiritual themes, and I haven't seen it myself, so I don't know, but I just think that's amazing. I think that's amazing that you can see that that's where Hollywood is starting to go now, and there's just been this big shift happening, and I love it. Okay, so my sister called me the other day, and she shared with me this crazy phenomenon that's been happening where she lives. She lives out by Harriman. Her son is on the high school hockey team. They've had 3 suicides this year, all from the hockey team. In addition to those 3 suicides on her son's hockey team, not at the same time, they were all separate over a period of a few months, she said there's been other suicides out there. People that she knows in her own ward, their children have been saying that they want to commit suicide, and so there's been a lot of parents that have taken their children to get help and have them on a 24-hour watch, and these are children as young as the age of 10 years old, all the way up to 18. And she said, you know, I really feel like there's this dark cloud looming over Harriman. They went to the funeral today, and she shared those pictures on Facebook, and it's just amazing. And she did share with me that all 3 of those boys that commit suicide, they weren't members of the church, and the ones that were not active and didn't have a testimony, and they just felt hopeless leading up to their suicide. They felt overwhelmed, they felt all alone, and they felt helpless. You know, that brought on a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety, and I believe that's one of the ways that Satan is trying to attack our youth right now, is he's getting them to feel overwhelmed by their problems and telling them that it's hopeless and that they're all alone. So there's no one they can talk to about it. Nobody cares. Nobody understands. No one can help them. And they feel that they're carrying all these burdens on their own. And they don't know about their Savior. They don't know about what he's done for them and how he can take those burdens from them. They don't know that. They're not being taught that. They don't have a testimony of that. And I believe that Satan has a stronghold over that area right now. I do believe in strongholds, and I know I've shared this in some of my past videos. It's just like a real battle, like a real war. You have the enemy who sets up camps. You know, they have their tactics, they have their battle plans, they prepare with weapons, they target the weakest spots, and that's when they attack. When I pay attention to attacks that happen in my own life, that's the pattern that I notice. I look at modern day warfare tactics, and I look at how battles have taken place all throughout the history of this earth. I look at that and I see those same patterns happening in the spirit world, in my own life. I can feel those attacks, and I can see when I'm caught off guard sometimes. Sometimes I let my guard down. There's days when I'm not as spiritually prepared. Maybe I didn't start my morning with prayer, and so my defenses are down. You know, I can see the way that the enemy sneaks into my life, but when I can catch it and take care of it right away through prayer and call upon heavenly help to come help me out, because you know, we don't fight these battles on our own. The Lord fights the battles for us. And we don't have to do that fighting. We don't have to do the fighting. We just do the asking. We just call for that help, and then he sends it. It comes. And sometimes, you know, I think that we think we're all on our own. We have to fight these battles ourselves. And I don't think that's the case. Something that I always try to do in my prayer is I start with my home. I pray over my home and my property, and then I expand from there, and I bless my ward and my state, my community, my city, my county, my state. And I just expand from there, and I cover every state throughout the nation, the entire nation, the leadership of the nation, leadership of the church. Then I go worldwide, and I pray over all the nations and all the leaders who are righteously seeking to do the Lord's will and to be righteous leaders. And I pray for all of that, and I'm very specific. I treat it like warfare, and I pray for angels, armies of angels, to go down into certain regions where there is a lot of darkness. And you just have to watch the news to figure that out. If we all did that every day, we would see a huge impact in the physical world happening on this earth. We would see a huge change. And I think some of us just get so overwhelmed, and we forget that we have that help, and we just think that we're doing it on our own. And if you think about it that way, you do feel overwhelmed. You do feel outnumbered. You do feel like it's hopeless and impossible. And that's exactly what the adversary wants us to think. And he's really targeting the youth right now. And so I wanted to share that in this video, just as a reminder that it's so important that we talk to our kids about this every day, and that we teach them, and that they share this with their friends. You know, the enemy is desperate right now. He is desperate because of this period that we're entering, and because of this final hour. And so you can see that it's evident right now all around us of how he is trying to destroy our faith. When I was on the phone with my sister, she shared an awesome experience with me. She had a birthday while I was in Cancun. So I asked her how her birthday went. And she said, you know, it was really interesting. She said the week before I actually signed up to feed the missionaries on my birthday. And she said, and everybody in my neighborhood and in my ward thought I was nuts. And she said the reason that happened was because there was a day when I walked in late to Relief Society, and that sign-up sheet had already gone around and been through everybody, and so they handed it to me, and I saw that the only date left available to feed the missionaries was on my birthday. And I felt like if I didn't sign up for that, they weren't going to get dinner that night, and I wasn't going to let that happen. And she said, I believe everything happens for a reason. There was a reason I came in late to that meeting. There was a reason that my birthday was the only day available. And I felt like that the Lord wanted me to feed them on my birthday, so I was excited to do it. So now when she signed up to feed the missionaries, she didn't know that this boy was going to commit suicide. She had no idea any of this was going to happen. But the Lord knew. He was already setting everything up and orchestrating it before these things even happened. And so she said the day before her birthday was when this boy took his life. And it affected all the boys on the team. And her son and all of his friends, you know, they were pretty sad about it. The day of her birthday, her son said, Mom, my friends are really having a hard time right now, and I feel like I need to spend time with them. I can't just leave them alone. They're really struggling. And she said, you know what, why don't you bring them over for dinner? And so he said, okay. So he came over and brought his friends with him to dinner. And she said it just so happened that two of her other sons were out with their friends and she couldn't find them. She couldn't find them to bring them home for dinner. She had no idea where they were. They tried, they called, couldn't find them anywhere. So she thought, oh well, I guess they're not supposed to have dinner with us. Well, because they weren't there, there happened to be two more spots at the table for her son's two friends. So there was enough room for the missionaries, her other two boys, her son's friends, and she and her husband. She said it was just perfect. And the missionaries learned what had happened, and they were actually able to share their testimony and share a message with these two boys that were really struggling, who didn't know about the plan of salvation and didn't know much about their Savior. The missionaries were prepared to teach them all about that. And one of the boys really took well to that message, and he was really hungry for it. It's almost like through this experience, some of these boys on the hockey team are being brought to the gospel because of this experience, because this other boy ended his life. These other boys are now questioning what happens after we die and how can we have hope through all of this. And the missionaries were prepared. It was like everybody was lined up. Everything was orchestrated just right. Everybody was in the right place at the right time. And she said it was just the most beautiful experience, and she couldn't have asked for a better birthday present. Later that night, some of her friends threw her a surprise party, so it was just a wonderful day, but she shared that with me, and I was really touched by it, so I wanted to share it with you as well. So my dad called me the other night. It was like 10:30 at night. My dad usually goes to bed pretty early, and he doesn't call me very often. He lives about 3 hours away from me now, and he's been really busy building a house, pretty much single-handedly building his own home, and he's in his 60s, so I don't know how he does it. He's a pretty busy guy, and I don't hear from him that often. I don't see him that often, but when I do, we always have the best time, and I just love my dad. He's so awesome to talk to and always has great insight and great stories. So he called me the other night. He said, I just have to tell you about something really bizarre that happened. And I said, yeah, sure, go ahead, tell me. And he said, the other night, I just finished reading the Book of Mormon with my wife, and we were looking for something else to read, and we remembered, so I'm going to show you guys. Some of you know about this novel that I wrote. I co-wrote this with my dad, and we published it back in 2013. It's supposed to be a trilogy, but so far I've only got this first book published. A lot of you know that this book actually shares a lot of personal experiences that happened to my dad, and that's why he wanted to share it in a story. He wanted to share some of these experiences. So I created the story and I created the characters and I put this together at his request. Now, I don't ever read fiction. I usually read biographies, nonfiction, self-help books. I love documentaries. You know, I don't really get into a lot of fiction. So it was a really crazy project for me to take on, totally unfamiliar territory for me, but I knew that it was meant to be. I knew I was supposed to do this for him, and it was confirmed after I published it. We received incredible reviews, and gosh, in the first week I had over 5,000 downloads off of Kindle. I knew it was something really special. I knew it was a really good book, and I felt that its purpose was to reach a broad audience of people who kind of have those questions about why we're really here and what our purpose really is. So it's not an LDS-based book, but it's written to a broad Christian audience, and it's really touched a lot of people. I remember when it first came out, I remember one mother sent in a testimony to me about how this book helped her daughter who was struggling with depression and substance abuse. And from what she read in this book, it changed her life. You know, so many other experiences of people who had a loved one who was struggling with this or that, and something in this book touched them, gave them a piece to the answers that they were looking for. And so this book has really been a blessing. It's a really intense book. It's suspenseful, it has romance, it has humor, it has drama, it has all of that. I had got started on the second book a couple of years ago, and that's when my first laptop crashed and I lost everything. I had saved the book somewhere else, so I was able to have that. However, I don't like to sit in the office when I write. I like to be on my laptop so that I can move around and get inspiration, and I wasn't able to do that because I went a couple of years without a laptop. So finally I got that laptop for Christmas, and I thought, okay, I'm going to pick up on the story, I'm going to finish it. And then my backup drive crashed, and you know that story. I shared it in the recent videos. And I remember thinking, okay, if for some reason I don't recover these hard drives, then I don't think it's meant to be. I'm not supposed to finish this series. Maybe the Lord wants me focusing my time and attention elsewhere. And maybe there's just not time in this final hour we're in. There's just not time to finish this series. But it was just constantly on my mind, and I kept having the book fans contact me and say, hey, when is book 2 coming out? You've been saying now for a couple of years, where is it, where is it, where is it? So I felt this pressure from the readers. And then when this happened, I was like, well, is that a sign? Then I needed the information on that hard drive. So I had my past crashed hard drive and my recent crashed hard drive, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna get a miracle with this. And so when that happened and my miracle came through and I got 100% of all my files back, that meant that I got my files for book 2 back. So the other day I made that decision. When it comes in the mail and I get everything back this week, I am going to pick up and start working on book 2, and I'm going to finish it. I'm going to get this series finished. And I remember making that decision. And then my dad called me that night and he said, this is so bizarre, I have to share this with you. He said, so he told me that my brother's wife the other day was in the kitchen and she was talking to Alexa. She was wanting it to recommend music or play music for her, and so she said something like, play me some music. And all of a sudden Alexa said, I recommend the book The Realm, written by Lindsay K. Reach and Roger Willardson. You can find this on Amazon. She went on and explained all the details of our book and how you can get it, and she thought that was so strange. It was so random. She didn't ask anything about books. She asked about music. And for Alexa, out of all the books in the world, to bring up this book right here, I mean, that's not a coincidence. She thought it was so bizarre that she called my brother and said, you're not going to believe what just happened. So later on that night when he came home, they tried to recreate it. And he started to talk to Alexa and say the same things that his wife did. And then she tried it again. And no matter how many times they tried to recreate this experience, Alexa never did it again. She never recommended another book. She never brought up this book. And it was so funny because my kids were playing around the other day and they did the same thing. And they were asking Alexa, who is Lindsay Reach? And Alexa had never heard of me. So for her to bring up my book, I took that as a sign. I took that as another witness, as did my dad. So he was calling me and he's like, it's so weird because my wife and I just started reading this book again. We're now on chapter 8 and we can't put it down. We just love it. And then this happened to Cameron's wife. And then I said, Dad, and you don't know any of this, but my hard drive crashed and I thought I lost book 2. And then a miracle happened and now I got it back. So I committed to writing book 2 and getting it done in the next couple of months. And I'm taking all of this as a witness that that's what I'm to do. And oh my gosh, it was just amazing. It was awesome. So I wanted to share that with you, and just wanted to say that over the next couple weeks, I'm going to really try to keep my videos shorter. I mean, not terribly short, but not as long as my last video, because I really feel that I am to finally get this series finished and get that done. I feel it's really important right now, so I'm going to be working on that. So I'm going to be putting more of my time and energy there. So it might seem like I'm in hiding at times, but really that's just what I'm doing. I'm putting all my time and energy into finishing this series. And again, it's 11 minutes and 33 seconds on this video recording, right as I'm talking about that. I didn't get around to everything that I wanted to share in this week's video, but I'm just going to give you a heads up. For the last couple of videos, I've been meaning to share this experience and tell you some things that I just haven't been able to fit in each of these videos, and again, I wasn't able to fit it in this video, so I'm going to save it for next week's video. If you've read You Were Meant to Prosper, it talks about that experience in there, so if you've read that book, you're going to know a little bit about what it is I'm sharing. It has a lot to do with spiritual warfare, and it's something that I feel is really important. It's a little bit of a heavier topic, so I do feel that it will be better for another video, but just wanted to give you a heads up that that's something I will be covering in next week's video. I want to leave this video on a positive note because I'm so excited for this Easter weekend. So I'm going to share with you the awesome favor that God showed to me and my family while we were on our vacation this week. I also want to share with you that my dad talked with me about an experience that happened to one of our family members. It was his great uncle, and there was an incredible experience that happened. It has to do with the Book of Mormon and ancient artifacts, and this happened to one of our family members. And there was a a big ordeal about it years ago. I want to say back in the 50s. And a newspaper article was written about it. Media was all over the story. And I guess just a few months ago, this story has resurfaced. From what I've heard in the newspaper articles that he sent me to, the general authorities are giving the green light on reopening research on this finding and this discovery, and that there's enough validation now to the truth of his story and what he discovered that BYU is possibly getting involved, and that they are putting time and money into digging up the site. Might reveal some awesome things about this sacred land and just be another witness to the Book of Mormon. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm not going to have time to share any of that in this video. So I'm going to put that in a blog post this week. So keep your eyes open for that blog post, and I'll have all the links and everything there, but it's so awesome. So anyways, I want to share with you the favor that our family received. And I did share this on social media, so some of you have heard about this, but I just want to add a few more things. So when our trip began and we arrived at the Salt Lake Airport that morning, our shuttle bus driver at the parking lot, who took us from parking to our terminal, was so awesome. She was so happy, and she was singing songs into the microphone and having everybody shout, "Hooray, hooray," and having everyone clap their hands. And she was like, "It's a wonderful day, it's a wonderful day." She just did that all the way to the terminal, and she was smiling and laughing. And it was so early in the morning, it was almost still dark outside, and we all appreciated that. So that was how our day started. Then as we're boarding the plane, I looked down. I have Tatum's hand, my 3-year-old, and I looked down and I said, "Oh, look, honey, there's a penny." But there were so many people behind us trying to board the plane, we didn't bend over and pick it up. The flight attendant saw that, and she said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll get the penny for you. I'll give it to you later." As we exited that flight in Cancun, she greeted us at the front of the plane, and she said, "Guess what? I have a little secret for you." She said, "Every flight that I work on, I hide a penny at the entrance of the plane, and whoever finds it, they win a prize." And she said, "You know, you guys were the lucky family. Your son was the lucky boy who found the penny, so here you go. Congratulations." And she put together this huge pack full of treats and prizes and fun things for kids for my little boy. It was so cute. And she just wished us a wonderful vacation. And so that's how we started off our vacation. It was awesome. Oh, and not to mention, I forgot to mention that while we were on the flight, another flight attendant noticed that our games weren't working on our little screens. We could watch movies and other things, but the games weren't working, which wasn't really a big deal. But he noticed that. So he came right over and he said, "You know what? I saw that your games aren't working, so I want to do something for you." So he gave me 5,000 free Sky Miles, and then he gave us a voucher for both of my girls, $50 to $100 each towards our next flight. And he's like, I want to do this now so that you know it's legit." So he pulled out his phone, and he got on there and he sent me an email and sent these vouchers. And you know, as soon as I got off the plane, I pulled up my email and there they were. So I just thought that was so awesome. So instead of complaining that, you know, our games didn't work and my kids couldn't play the video games, we were like, "Oh, it's fine. We've got movies. Everything's great." And we were still happy, and look what happened. And then when we were on the beach, we had this amazing server that waited on us every day. His name was Thomas. He loved the fact that we were Mormon. He thought it was so cool, and he loved to talk with us about it. And he really took care of us, and he spoiled us. And we would ask for a treat or a drink, and he would bring us 2 or 3 of those. And he would bring us out things we didn't even ask for, and he always had a big smile on his face, and he just made it such a wonderful time for us. We went to the gift shop in Chichen Itza. We went to go pay for our items, and all of a sudden we realized we didn't bring our debit cards. We left our wallets in the hotel. We just had the cash on us, which wasn't enough cash to pay for everything, and then still have money for tipping, for renting the life jackets at the swimming hole. So I thought, oh no, we're gonna have to put all this back, because we were, you know, we really didn't have enough cash. And the people at the register started talking to each other, and they said, "You know what, it's totally okay. We'll just take whatever you can give us, whatever you have." And so we got like a $50 discount, and that again was the Lord's favor. And I can't tell you how many times we passed complete strangers and tourists who would stop us and say, "Oh my goodness, you have such a beautiful family. I just wanted to tell you how beautiful your family is and how well behaved your kids are, and hope you have a wonderful day." We got told that constantly. So many people on this trip, people we didn't even know, went out of their way to do the kindest things for us. I mean, the list just was so long, I don't have time to share it all. But then even on the last day, you know, when I talked about earlier how I saw that dove above me, we went to go eat at the restaurant before our shuttle came to pick us up to go to the airport, and it was closed. And that's what we were planning on doing for lunch, because it's all inclusive. You know, it's all included in the package. You don't have to pay anything out of pocket. We really wanted to eat lunch. And I thought, oh no, now what are we gonna do? And then they recommended, oh, there's the grill on the beach, you know, go have lunch there. We'd never eaten there the entire week. So it actually turned out to be a wonderful thing. We went and had lunch on the beach. One last time we got to spend some time on the beach, and we had this amazing meal. It was food we hadn't had yet, so it was so delicious. And then I saw the dove above me, and some other wonderful things happened. And there was even a woman who walked up to us on the beach the second day that we were there, and she said, I just bought this brand new boogie board for my grandson, and now we have to go home, and I don't want to take this with me. Do you guys want this? And so she gave us this brand new boogie board that my kids loved and had so much fun with, and we brought it home with us. And these kind of things happened all day, every day. One more experience I just wanted to share is a couple of years ago when my kids were off track, like they are right now, I took them to a rock shop in Ogden, and I told them they could pick out their favorite rocks, because when I was little, I used to collect rocks, and I still have a rock collection. I'm gonna have to show it to you one of these days in a video, because a lot of those rocks have a heart inside of them. I was really drawn to rocks that had hearts in them. And so I let them go in and pick out some rocks, and that day that I was in there, I remember this man came up to me. He was a customer in the store, and there were quite a few people there that day. And he was a Native American man, a little bit shorter than me, and he had the most beautiful blue eyes I have ever seen. They reminded me of the color of the waters of the ocean at Cancun. Just a beautiful turquoise color, and he had the most beautiful eyes, and he had the most tender soul, and I could feel from a distance that he had this beautiful energy, this just innocent, childlike quality about him, vibe going on. He just felt really innocent and really loving and caring and compassionate. And anyways, he just walked up to me, and he was so sweet, and he said, hi, can I tell you why I'm here and what I do? And it was so random. And I said, sure, yeah, of course. And I remember as I looked into his eyes, I just felt so peaceful, and I felt all this love, and I felt like I had known him before. He felt so familiar. And he told me, he said, I make dream catchers. These are for my tribe, and my family and I, we make these dream catchers. And he told me all about them, and he had one there, and he was showing it to me, and he was there getting some stones for the dream catchers. And I remember as he was telling me this, I just kind of had this thought, like, I need to look more into dream catchers. I need to learn more about them. And, you know, I had always heard things that kind of put me off, and, you know, I'd seen videos and heard things from other people to stay away from dream catchers, and that was all I knew. But as he talked about them and shared with me traditions from his tribe and I guess his own testimony about these dream catchers, I became interested. I said, do you have a business card or a website? I'd like to learn more. I'd like to check them out. I'd like to check out your collection. And he said, you know, I don't. And he said, but this weekend I'm going to be at this event. And he told me the name of this Catholic church in Ogden, and that there was like a fair going on, or there was an event going on, and there would be booths, and he had a booth there. And so if I came and looked for him, I would find his dream catcher booth, and I would be able to see his collection and possibly purchase one. And he had the kindest smile on his face, and I was so happy. And so anyways, I went home that day and I looked up the information he gave me. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find the Catholic Church. I couldn't find any events that were going on in Ogden that day. I went to every Catholic church I could find in Ogden, and there was nothing. There were no events going on. I called the city. I tried everything I can think of. I talked to my Catholic friends. I talked to my friends who live in Ogden. I spent 2 hours trying to find out who this man was. Every little detail he gave me, I couldn't find anything. And there was nothing. And so I always thought that was really interesting, and I always wondered who he really was. Anyways, over the last couple of years, my daughter Cambry has really struggled with sleeping. She has a lot of nightmares, and she wakes up a lot, and she always has dark circles under her eyes. She sleeps with her lamp on, plus night lights. She just doesn't get the best sleep, and we've tried so many different things, and we pray with her, and she just has always struggled with sleeping. Long story short, when we were in Chichen Itza and we were at the gift shop, my girls, I told all my kids, you can pick out one thing, and pretty much everything there had to do with like the Day of the Dead, and it had skeletons and skulls, and I thought, well, if you've seen my Halloween video, I'm like, let's see what else they have at the gift shop, you know, let's look around. And as we looked around, there really weren't a whole lot of things there for kids, and especially in the price range that we gave them. And all of a sudden my girls saw these dream catchers. There was just this tiny little section that had some dream catchers on it, and they ran to those, and my daughter Camry said, Mom, I want one of these. I've wanted one forever, and I know this will help me with my dreams, and I won't have nightmares anymore, and I believe it, I know it, I need to have this, I just need to have it. And she wouldn't stop talking about it, and I had never talked to her about dream catchers before, and anyways, I said, well, let's wait, let's see what else they have here, let's look around. After spending time walking around, my two daughters said, Mom, this is all we want, we don't want anything else, we just want this, we just want this, we just want this, and they begged and they begged, and I thought, okay, we'll get them the dream catchers. They were so excited. I mean, you would have thought that I would have just given them tickets to Disney World. And when we got home, I prayed over the dream catchers and I blessed them that they would only bring good energy into our home and that they would help the girls have good dreams, and I felt good about it. We hung her pink dream catcher over the top of her bed, and the next morning when she woke up, she said, Mom, I had the best dream ever. I had a dream about unicorns and it lasted all night. And anyway, she has continued all week to have wonderful dreams and get really good sleep. And so I just thought that was so interesting, and she really had a good feeling about this, and I trusted her, and I listened, and I let her have this, and then I thought back to that Native American man that we saw 2 years prior who told me to get dream catchers for my girls, and I never did, and I just thought that was really interesting. But what I want to share with you, so I decided to do a little bit of research on dream catchers and their history, and what I discovered is how they originated. They originated with a tribe up in Canada. It said the grandmothers and the mothers in that tribe got together and had this idea to create something that would help their kids not have bad dreams. And so they came up with this idea of a dream catcher, and it would look like a web, like a net, where it would serve as like a filter, where it would catch all the dreams that were coming to them. And it would filter out anything negative would get stuck in the web, and everything good would run down and drip off of the feathers, so the feathers hang down, and the good dreams would drip off of the feathers and land onto the children, so they would have sweet dreams at night. And that's where dream catchers originated from, was some very creative and loving grandmothers and mothers. Okay, now here's where it gets even more interesting. And you know, I'm sorry, that's a word I say a lot. You'll find it in all my videos. If you do a count on the word interesting, yeah, I'm sure I say it at least 30 times or more in every video. But here's her little pink dream catcher, and this is what's so interesting. It's an 11-point star. It's an 11-pointed star. I saw stars so much on this trip in Mexico, you guys. Another movie that I saw on the plane was the superhero movie with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. I watched that movie, and I noticed at one point in the movie that Wonder Woman has the 8-pointed star on her little gold band that she wears over her head. It has the 8-pointed star, and I saw that, and I noticed that, and then I seem to see stars everywhere in Mexico. Then my daughter gets this dream catcher, and it has an 11-pointed star, and I have never seen an 11-pointed star. I had never paid attention to them. I didn't know much about them, so I decided to Google it, and it's called a hendecagram. I hope I said that right. So I'm reading about this, and it says that there are 4 regular hendecagrams right there. There it is. 11-3, 311. There it is right there. That's the star that she has on her, right there, 311. That's the star that she has on her dream catcher. Now it says here, prisms over the hendecagrams 11/3 and 11/4, so 113 and 114, may be used to approximate the shape of DNA molecules. This reminded me of the 11th hour. And pink is Camry's favorite color. and all they had were pink and blue. Paisley got the blue one. So leading up to our trip, just a couple days prior to our vacation, she got another urinary tract infection, and this one was so bad. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and we were over at the Instacare trying to see a doctor to help her because we thought, we don't know what to do. These keep coming back, and we've tried everything, and I just felt it was another attack from the enemy, and he didn't want us to go on this vacation. He didn't want us to have this experience, and in fact, I'm going to have to save that for next week's video. I had an amazing experience at Chichen Itza that was very spiritual and had to do with the Book of Mormon, and I'm going to have to share that in next week's video, but just so many wonderful things happened on this trip, and I believe he didn't want that to happen. And so we go on this trip, and all of a sudden she's in the best health she's ever been in. And I believe a combination from the vitamin D from the sun and her feet being grounded in the sand every day, the fresh air, the oxygen. We were at sea level, so all that oxygen in the air, you know, and the silver water, just everything. She was so happy, and she hasn't been sick since. She hasn't had any issues ever since. That trip did something amazing for her. And she's come home and had wonderful dreams, been getting the best sleep she's ever had. And I've really seen a change in her, a really positive change. That's what this number 11 reminds me of, is we're in that 11th hour, and this is an hour of healing. We need to be healed in this final hour. We need to be healed so that we can be those bright lights, so that we can be spiritually prepared, so that we can help prepare others for the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And then check this out. I mean, I've been seeing signs everywhere. I've had so many witnesses and experiences over the last couple of weeks. When we were on the beach in Cancun, my daughter asked me to squirt some sunscreen on her hand. So I picked it up and I squirted it onto her hand, and it came out in a number 8. Remember, 2018, it's the year of the gate. It's the year of that new gateway opening and those shifts happening and entering into the new, and we talked a lot about the number 8 in previous videos this year, and so there again was the number 8, and it's just amazing the way that the Lord works, the way that he speaks to us. It's just so amazing, and just put a smile on my face. And right when I just said put a smile on my face, I looked up and I was 1 minute and 13 seconds into the video. I love it. The day before I went on my trip, I saw one of my good friends, and she encouraged me to bring this amazing silver water with us on our trip. It's a newer technology of silver water, and so I bought 2 bottles of it, and we never once got sick on our entire trip. And leading up to this trip, I can't tell you how many people prepared me and said, be prepared, one of you is probably going to get Montezuma's revenge, and the water's so dirty, don't ever drink the water, don't ever eat the ice, and everywhere you go, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And the crime, you know, everything happening in the news with Mexico, and food poisoning, you know, parasites, all of it. I heard this constantly, to the point where it started to not sound fun to go to Cancun anymore. And I had to remember that's the spirit of fear. And so I took back that spirit of faith and just said, you know what, we're going to have a wonderful time. Everything's going to be awesome. And I prayed before we went on our trip that everything would be awesome, that we would have great health, that none of us would get sick, that we wouldn't lose anything, that we wouldn't be robbed, we wouldn't have any negative experiences. And we ended up having one of the most amazing vacations we've ever had. Everything went wonderful. We ate the ice, we drank the water, we ate the food, we went outside of the resort, and we did not encounter any negative experiences whatsoever. And I was just so grateful for all of this. We drank the silver water every day, we put it in our water, and yeah, we didn't have any problems. So I just felt the favor of God with us that whole week, and just really felt his love. Hearts manifested everywhere, every day. I have so many pictures of hearts, and it just really was an incredible week, and now I'm so excited for Easter. So I just wanted to share that with you, that when we plant those seeds of faith, and we choose to have the spirit of faith instead of the spirit of fear, it's amazing what the Lord will do for us. It's amazing how that changes our life. It's amazing what that leads to. Again, it's all about that number 311. It's all about this final hour that we're living in, and that third day power in the 11th hour. And I'm so excited to be living my life that way right now, and that's the message I just want to share with you. Just to encourage you to keep your chin up, to keep your faith, and to hope for the best. anyways, thanks so much. I hope you have a wonderful Passover, a wonderful Easter weekend, and a wonderful conference experience. Thank you so much, you guys. Hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time.